Hi there, welcome to Frames team, and today I'm going to talk about why the ZF makes so much sense for Nikon right now. Okay, at the very outset, I'd request you to subscribe to the channel because you will really push me and inspire me if you show your support by sharing a thanks or giving this video a like and subscribing to the content. Quite a few months back when the ZFC was launched, I mean, there was quite a bit of excitement in the market, and the talk was that Nikon was actually doing something that Fuji had been doing for a while now and found success. And the conversation was that Nikon's ZFC was sort of a Nikon testing the grounds for them to launch a ZF or a full frame retro style camera. And today, after Nikon has perfected their own autofocus system and brought it up to the market standard, if you consider Sony and Canon to be the standard in autofocus performance, when Nikon have done that, when Nikon have launched the new processor, when they have two back-to-back roaring successes in the form of Z9 and Z8, now they actually have the room and the wherewithal to focus on a niche market, right, with the new camera. Now they don't have the immediate pressure for numbers because they've sort of taken care of that. They also know that they need to get ready for the Z6 Mark III and Z6 III and the Z7 III, but in between they have this little bit of time where they can try and do something interesting, something that's not done for the mainstream market, but something that's done for the niche market, something that's designed to maybe you some users from other brands, people who have been fascinated by the Sony's A7C and waiting for the A7C II, people who keep Fuji going, with it because of the XT line. So there are that part of the market that is very excited to try something like a ZF, a retro styled camera, which is all about pleasure, which is all about going manual completely. It's not about the pressure of productivity while at work with your camera, but the freedom and the pleasure of photography while the camera is with you, or you are with the camera. Either way, so I think there is space for that, and we should understand that there is space for that. And it is the way I look at it is this is Nikon's contribution to sort of bring to focus on pleasure photography, to focus on everyday carry one everyday carry camera apart beyond the ZFC. My problem with the ZFC was that it had a crop sensor, and it didn't have IBIS. The third problem that I felt that I didn't like the ZFC so much for is because I felt that the body was too plasticky. So though they are the two things I want improved in the ZF. I want a better body quality, and I want the IBIS to be installed inside that body, which means that it could be a little slightly bigger camera body, but I'm fine with that. If Nikon could give us 3.5 to 4 star IBIS, I'm fine with that as well. So it doesn't need to be the most effective IBIS ever, as long as there is some IBIS inside this camera. At the same time, I also am acutely aware of the fact that a lot of people are actually going to use the ZF as a video and vlogging camera, because it's going to be a tiny small camera used with tiny small lenses, and it'll probably balance very beautifully on gimbals. So I think that is the reason why IBIS should be installed in this camera. Now, should it be a high megapixel camera? Should be a 24 megapixel camera? I think it should be a high megapixel camera. I'll tell you why. The reason is that I think most of the plastic mount or plastic bayonet Z lens, like the 28, the 40 these lenses have the resolution to resolve 46 megapixels. And with the ZF in hand, you may not be able to use a long lens like an 85 or a 105 or essentially any long lens. But if you have the ability to crop in in a super resolution sensor like a 46 megapixel or 45.7 megapixel Z7 III sensor, I don't think it's going to have a Z8 sensor. So in that case, it just, you make do with a 40 megapixel for 40 f2 lens. Also, the other thing we must remember is that, if you've heard the recent rumors, Sony is actually considering the A7C and A7C, A7C Mark II and A7C R2, and which means that they may actually launch an A7C with a 61 megapixel sensor. So there's clearly a need for a small everyday carry camera to have high resolution, because they're not going to use long lenses in that. Okay, so the other thing to do there is to just crop in, and if you don't have the resolutions, that's a problem. I think 46 megapixels is just a sweet spot, because you don't start seeing diffraction, and therefore compared to a 61 megapixel camera, where at 5.6 onwards you start seeing a little bit of diffraction, you don't get all the benefit of a super resolution, high resolution sensor. And that is why I think that for a 6 megapixel Z7 II sensor on the ZF is just right and just perfect, and I'm rooting for that, honestly. How can this be done? Because at $2,000 it looks impossible. I don't think so. First of all, I don't think it's going to be $2,000. I think it's going to be 2200, 2300, somewhere there. Plus, also remember, the Z7 II sensor is the Z7 sensor, and so it's been around for a while now. It's probably the same sensor as you've seen in the D850. So it's been around for 5-6 years. So today the sensor will not be as pricey as it was when Nikon started the D850. So over the last few years, Nikon surely have ensured that the input cost on that particular sensor has reduced, along with the shutter, which I think the ZF should have, because it should offer us the tactile experience of a retro camera. So I expect this camera to have a shutter. Along with the shutter, I think this is a wonderful camera. This can also become a wonderful studio camera, to be honest. And when you're not going out, if you have a secondary camera like a Z8 or a Z6 II, this can be one camera that you can just put on a tripod. If it has a flip out screen, that's going to be great. I don't know, on the screen bit, my preference is the A7R5 implementation, but I don't know what it's going to be. I think it should be either the A7R5 implementation, or it should be like not exactly like Z50, but an upward swiveling forward screen, like I think some of the Sony cameras. So Sony APS-C cameras. I don't want it to be a flip out screen, because it should be a photography first camera, but it should have the capability to help you vlog. So I think it should be an XE4 style flip forward screen, and it should flip forward upward, not downward. That's all. And it should have the larger battery. I don't want it to have the smaller APS-C battery, and therefore if it has the larger battery, I think it should have a slight tiny bump while the grip should be. And even if there is some texture, I think there should be some amount of texture on the body, so that it's just easier to hold. My problem with the ZFC was, the other problem was that it felt too bald to hold for me, honestly, and it always necessitated a small rig grip on that camera, which is fine, which is not a problem. But I still think the camera on its own should have enough gripability, if that's a word. So there's my 2 cents on the ZF. I think it's the perfect timing for Nikon to launch this, because it is coming in between, and I think the Z6 III and the Z7 III will come together, and it'll come probably much later in the year or early next year, calendar year, and by that time I think we'll have quite a few other lenses out, like the 135 1.8 and the 35 1.2. I think there will be a revised lens roadmap announced by that time as well, where we are going to see more crop sensor more crop sensor lenses, and more vlogging centric wide angle lenses, and more innovative lenses, which I cannot actually anticipate, but I kind of expect to see more lenses. I won't be surprised if there are 1.4 lenses announced. So I think that's the sort of future that I see for Nikon going forward in the next few months. So this is so the lineup is going to get busy again. This therefore is the right time for to launch the ZF. I also expect Nikon to do something to handle the crop sensor lineup, because it's time now. I expect that to happen, and I'm going to soon test their 24 1.7 lens and compare that with the Viltrox 23 1.4. These are interesting lenses. We should have a look at them. They're great lenses for the APS-C lineup, and expect to see more action on the APS-C front by Nikon. So yeah, looking forward to the ZF. Looking forward to see how that compares and contrasts with my experience with the Fujis. I have quite a few lenses on the Fuji mount. So yeah, it's all in all, I think it's exciting times for Nikon, and it's an exciting time to be a Nikon user. And it's great that Nikon is actually serious about bringing that variety in the Nikon lineup. You have the ZFC, you have the ZF, you have the Z8, the Z9, the Z. The crop sensor lineup is a bit hollow right now. I think it's an exciting time to be in the Nikon camp. I want more firmware updates on the Z8 and the Z9 to perfect the autofocus, especially when it comes to video. I'll talk about that later someday. Okay, I'm going to see you very soon with another one. And please subscribe. Please subscribe. If you like this video, please subscribe. And I'm going to see you soon with another one.